I get it when you're thinking about stepping up from a crop sensor kit or an older DSLR. The idea of dropping a six-figure price tag on a new mirrorless body feels like a gamble. You've probably watched a few YouTubers rave about the ultimate sports camera, but you also know there are a lot of hype-filled promises out there. The biggest fear is ending up with a camera that looks amazing on paper but leaves you stuck in the field because the autofocus flops on a fast-moving subject, or the battery dies after a handful of shots. So before you decide whether the Canon EOS R3 is worth that investment, let's break down what it actually does for you when you're out shooting. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the R3 sits in the high-end corner of Canon's mirrorless lineup, and it's built around a 24.1 megapixel stacked CMOS sensor paired with the DIGIC processor. That combination means the camera can handle 6K RAW at 60 frames per second and 4K video at 120 frames per second, which is a sweet spot for photographers who also want serious video capabilities without lugging around a separate camcorder. The real-world implication? If you're a wedding photographer who needs to capture the bouquet toss in crystal-clear detail, or a wildlife shooter trying to pull a crisp frame of a hummingbird's wing beat, the sensor's speed gives you a buffer of frames to pick the perfect moment. But speed alone isn't the whole story. The R3's autofocus system is what most people talk about when they say exceptional. It uses Canon's dual-pixel CMOS 2 technology plus deep learning algorithms that recognize faces, eyes, and even animals. In practice, that translates to a confidence level you can trust when you're tracking a sprinter on the track or a cyclist weaving through a peloton. I've seen reviewers point out that the eye detect works so reliably that you can keep the camera in the bag, half-press the shutter, and let the AF do the rest, freeing you to focus on composition rather than hunting focus points. Low light performance is another common sticking point for anyone moving into full-frame mirrorless. The R3 sensor can push up to ISO 102400 while still delivering clean, low-noise images. In a practical sense, if you're shooting indoor sports where the arena lights are more like a soft wash than a bright flood, you'll still get usable images without having to crank the exposure up to the point where grain swamps detail. That said, the high-speed shooting mode does drain the battery faster than you might expect, so you'll want a spare LPE6NH or a battery grip if you're planning a full day of action. Speaking of batteries, the R3's rating is around 620 shots per charge under mixed usage, which is decent for a professional-grade body but still something to keep in mind. If you're the type who shoots all day without a break, factor in at least one extra battery. On the flip side, the camera's USB-C charging lets you top up while you're on a shoot, which can be a lifesaver when you have a power bank on hand. Stabilization is another piece that separates the R3 from many competitors. The in-body 5-axis IBIS provides up to 8 stops of shake reduction, which means you can walk with a 50mm lens handheld and still get video that's smooth enough for a documentary look. For photographers, that translates to sharper handheld shots at slower shutter speeds, handy when you're in a stadium where a tripod is banned, or when you need to move quickly between positions and can't afford to set up gear. Now, let's talk about the lens ecosystem. Canon's RF mount has been expanding rapidly, and the R3 can use every RF lens on the market, from ultra-wide 1535mm to the 600mm telephoto beasts. The good news is that you have a lot of high-speed, image-stabilized options that pair well with the body's own capabilities. The downside? Some of the top-tier RF lenses are pricey, and if you're just coming from a kit lens world, the total system cost can climb quickly. If you already own a collection of RF lenses, the R3 feels like a natural upgrade. If you're starting from scratch, you'll need to budget not just for the body but for at least one fast, sharp lens to truly take advantage of the autofocus and high-speed shooting. Menu navigation is another area where many mirrorless cameras stumble. The R3 uses Canon's familiar menu structure, but it adds a dedicated quick control dial and a touchscreen that can be customized for your most used settings. In real-world use, that means you can switch between burst modes, change ISO, or toggle the panning assist without digging through layers of submenus. The panning assist, by the way, is a clever feature that detects when you're tracking a moving subject and automatically adjusts the sensor readout to reduce smear. If you spend a lot of time on motorsports or tracking fast animals, this little aid can shave seconds off your reaction time. Who should actually consider buying the EOS R3? If you are a